Thanks, Karen, for that introduction, and don't be afraid of all these notes. It's really not that bad. I'm really privileged for me to come and speak today. As some of you know, we've been spending more time at my son's church in Burlington, but it really is a privilege to come back here. And I walk in the door here, and it feels like home. And I want to, thank you for all the friendships and relationships that we've built here over the years. So I thought today we're going to start talking about fundraising for the Canadian Food Grains Bank, and a lot of dollars and cents. So I thought I'd like to start with a short prayer that sort of sets our minds in what we really want to address, and that's there are people out there who are suffering from hunger. So if you will help me, there is 3 short stanzas, and at the end of each one, I will say, Lord, in your mercy, and you will reply, hear our prayer. So just a little response, and if you would be so kind as to help me with that. Let us pray. For those who will have nothing to eat today, tomorrow, or the day after, who are suffering from the effects of severe malnutrition, Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. For those who have left their homes in search of better conditions, who are walking for days in the hope of finding food. For those who arrive at refugee camps only to find them full, Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. For the sick and malnourished who desperately need medical attention, for those who will not live past today, those who can only stand and watch as loved ones die, Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. God, surround our suffering brothers and sisters with your presence. Strengthen and encourage them and all those who are working to help them. And give us, who have enough to eat, a profound hunger for justice that motivates us to deep generosity so that the suffering might end. We pray in the name of Jesus, who came to bring abundant life to all. Amen. So we can start our slideshow, and I really don't know where this will lead us. We've been told both that there's lots of time because Pastor Gordon is away this morning, so that's a good thing in the sense that he won't hear everything we have to say. We've also been told to keep it short, so I hope we'll end up somewhere in between. What is the Canadian Food Grains Bank? So this is Food Grains Bank 101. For those of you who have been listening to this for years, I do apologize, but there are always a few people who are new to this, and so it's good that we just start out with a little refresher course. 15 Canadian churches and agencies working together to end global hunger. Is it possible to sharpen up that image at the back, or is it is what it is? Okay, it is what it is. Nazarene Compassionate Ministries is a member. We are a member. We are one of 15. Our goal is not a simple goal, is a world without hunger. Created in 1983 with rural roots in Western Canada. There's some debate about when it was actually started, but there were initiatives by the Mennonite Central Committee years before that, and the Hutterites, I think, in Alberta claimed some responsibility, so we'll let them worry about that. We work in 40 countries, and the total budget of the Canadian Food Grains Bank last year, in their last fiscal year, was around $50 million. No small thing. It's no small thing. It's a big organization. Next. Okay. I'm sorry I forgot to bring the clicker, so if somebody would come up with that for me, please, or in the meantime, can you just change the slide? I'm sorry I didn't get that organized. Thank you, Jeff. Now I have to learn to run. How do we work to end global hunger? Food assistance is about 2/3 of the budget. Floods, hurricanes, all sorts of natural disasters, wars, and the immediate need for food, which you hear the most about on the TV and the radio, is about 2/3 of that big budget. Agriculture and livelihoods, which is basically a polite way of saying teaching people to feed themselves, which is the part that I'm probably most familiar with, is about 1/3 of the budget. And a lot of that has to do with teaching farmers overseas to farm under drought conditions. Nutrition is an increasing part of what we do, because a lot of the diets in the developing world are not balanced and they have the wrong amino acids, especially those countries, and there are many of them who live on corn-based diets in the southern areas, and a lot of our push now is in nutrition and trying to balance those diets. Advocacy and public engagement is a very small part of that budget, but basically what it boils down to is that we are trying to advocate and lobby for better conditions for overseas relief and development. And in that connection, I have at the end of the service, we're going to hand out these little I-Care cards. And what this basically means is that the percentage of our national budget to send overseas for overseas world relief is decreasing. And we want to try to change that. And so if you would put no postage required, you sign your name, the idea is to try to lobby government by filling bags and bags of postcards. So at the end of the service, Doug will hand these out, and if you would be so kind as to help me send them away. And we'll be talking more about that as we go along. Where does the money come from? Cash donations from churches and individuals. That's us. Growing and community projects. That's our growing project. Farmers, farm supporters and local businesses. Funds raised and deposited by member accounts of the CFGB. Funds transferred from churches. That's what our part of what we raise. Then also we have our core grant from Global Affairs Canada. And this is a huge thing because I think that government for years has trusted the Christian churches as a way of distributing aid in the developing world. And we get that trust by having a $25 million core grant from the Global Affairs Canada, which is the overseas relief arm of the government of Canada, every year. So we're responsible as Christian churches, all us 15 members, for distributing that food aid. A new thing that's happened just in the last few years, grants from foundations. And one example is the Gates Foundation, which has given a large grant toward conservation agriculture in 3 countries in Africa. Conservation agriculture is a buzzword for saying teaching people to farm under conditions of climate change. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So that's where the money comes from. How does your donation grow? Thanks, Jeffrey. We got the slide. Good guy. So let's take an example. Let's suppose it costs $400 to grow an acre of whatever crop. Last year was wheat on my farm. Let's suppose you donate $400. Now, you don't have to donate $400. We'll give you a tax receipt for anything more than 20 bucks. But let's just say that you donate enough for an acre. Well, that $400 probably only costs you $300 because you don't have to pay the tax because it's a donation. Now, you give it to Seeds of Life Growing Project or any other growing project. There are about 130 of them across Canada now, I think. And we grow the crop. We sell the crop. Let's say we got $500. And that money goes into our Nazarene account at the Canadian Food Grains Bank in Winnipeg. Very much like a bank. Each of the 15 members has a bank account. So let's say that $500 goes into the Nazarene bank account. I hope I'm reading this right. If you see something that I'm reading wrong, because it's very fuzzy at the back for me there. I'm trying my best. And so then we get proposals for overseas development projects, and we present these proposals. That takes a lot of work. We get a project going in X country. The Food Grains Bank, or the Global Affairs Canada, can match our money by up to 4 to 1. Not always, but a lot of the time it's matched by 4 to 1. So you take our $400 and $5 million, I guess, and it becomes $2,500 in the hands of our workers overseas. So you can see that a small donation can have a huge impact. And we're going to see that as we go along. Seeds of Life is 25. I can't believe this, but we had some soul searching, Nikki and I, and we figured that around 1993 it started at the Methodist church that's down the street. I remember that year because it was a very, very cold year. The crops didn't mature very well. We barely broke even with the donations and with the amount that we were able to sell. It was started out with 10 acres, and I'm sure that this idea of mine that had been growing in my head for a few years, I'm sure that they didn't think it was a very favorable thing, so I had to kind of go back and with my hat in my hand and beg for permission to start the next year. So it has grown over time to the point where we sold our livestock on our farm, and we were able to keep the one remaining parcel that we have, the 72 acres. And last year, we sent $63,000 to the Canadian Food Grains Bank. We were able to sponsor all of the acres on that farm. So it's been a blessing for us to have this over the years. This year, we spent $44,000 so far to the Canadian Food Grains Bank. It would have been more, but one thing that's happened is that it's grown beyond our own ability to finance it. So we are holding back some funds for seed for next year. So we're going to talk about this in the next few slides. Planting wheat last fall. Our farmer cooperators who are volunteering much of their time and their donations of machinery and fuel and this type of thing are doing a great job. Miller Farms, Don and Gary Comley are the two major people who actually do the work. I don't even own a riding lawnmower anymore, so I can't do very much of this. So, planting in October last fall, the farm visit in June. Many of you were there. I hope more of you come because we're planning to have another one in June this year. It's at the barn. We're having a great time, and we do have a roof. You can see that on the barn, so that if it rains, you're welcome to come anyway. It's a thank you to our donors. You don't have to be a donor to come and see us next June. If you just want to learn about the Food Grains Bank and our Nazarene involvement, you're welcome. So please come and see us next June, and we'll have a great time. Joanne Beach, my neighbor in Ancaster, who's the CFG BE board member for the Christian and Missionary Alliance Church, was our speaker, and some of you will recall that she did a tremendous job. Harvest in July. This stuff happens really fast with the big machines that our volunteer farmers have. You can't just sort of go out and help. You know, you can watch if you don't mind getting dusty, but it's developed into the kind of thing that very few hands are needed to actually do the work. Ready for next year. We have grown a cover crop, a green crop. We plowed it under to improve the soil. We put fertilizer, we put limestone, and we control weeds. And so we're ready to go for next year, which will be corn. And if you choose to help us donate with your donation toward the end of this year, we're still taking donations to the end of December. Well, not quite. We need a week or so to get them in the hands of the Food Grains Bank so that you can get a receipt. But up until about the third week in December, that will go towards seed for next year. That's our growing project, and this has gone very well, and we hope to carry on as long as we can. We're not just sure how long that will be, but we're taking it a year at a time. So, NCM Canada is the Compassionate Ministries arm of the Nazarene Church. Elaine Bumstead is our director, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the programs that we're involved with in the past and future programs with NCMC. Where does all this money go that we raise? That's going to be our next thing. Bangladesh has completed two large projects in 2016, nutrition and food security projects. It's one of the most densely populated areas in the world, as you know. A four-year project also for Food for Work, which is basically getting people to do things and using food as payment. We also have, because it's not only the most populated country, densely populated country in the world, but it didn't need the Rohingya refugees from nearby Burma. So NCM participated in a program response to the Rohingya refugees in 2017. I can't read the numbers there, but I think that 92,000, is that what, and what was the match? Okay, so what did we pay?
115,000.
What's the total? Okay, so that gives you an idea of where that matching funds will increase our funds. South Sudan and Somalia in Africa. South Sudan, food rations for severe malnutrition in young children and pregnant and nursing mothers. NCM contributed $30,000. The government match was $120,000. We partnered with other CFG members. And there will be a recurring theme here because the partnering with other members is really, really important. Nazarene Compassionate Ministries can't do everything by ourselves. This has got to be, I want to say this in the right way, but it's got to be kind of big business in the sense to satisfy the requirements of Global Affairs Canada, which are strict. And because we're a charity, we're under scrutiny. And the proposal writing field work required to get a proposal together and accepted by Global Affairs Canada is significant. It takes a lot of skill. So we can partner with other agencies, and I think this one was the Presbyterians. Okay? Somalia. It's had a civil war since the 1980s. It's one of the most dangerous places in the world for NGOs to work. Food and nutrition for children under 5, pregnant and nursing mothers, and TB patients. Our contribution, $20,000. The government match, $80,000. So you see, we can put, well, $20,000 is not a little bit of money, but with the government match, we can have a big impact. Malawi. I'm a little more familiar with Malawi because Dennis Hubert, a pastor from down east, and I went there in 2016, so I kind of have a heart for the work in Malawi. Malawi is one of the countries that is able to do more, I believe, because it doesn't have a conflict and the government is sort of behind wanting to do development. So in the countries where there are wars, it's exceedingly much more difficult. In 2016, Dennis and I interviewed 21 farmers in the Chimba district it's in central Malawi, in the Lolongwe area. And they were starting out small groups to learn techniques of farming under drought conditions. Those drought conditions resulted in a CFGP-sponsored food distribution that affected 2,000 families, and it was a severe drought. We saw that for ourselves. NCM, 69,000. The budget totaled 355,000. Pregnant and nursing mothers, female-headed households, elderly poor, and child-headed households. One of the things that happens, of course, is that dad goes off to work somewhere else to support the family, and maybe he finds work, and maybe he doesn't, but sometimes he doesn't come home. And a lot of the families that we talked to, we interviewed, were headed by mothers and grandmothers. So there's a tremendous burden on trying to get food. Of course, they have to try to farm to get their own food, in addition to doing all this. Conservation farming, I can't read it, I'm sorry, but I've talked a little bit about it. This project has grown from 21 farmers in 2016. Well, actually, it was a little bit more than 21. We interviewed 21, but I think there were 35 altogether in that area. And they formed farmer self-help groups to learn how to do this, these techniques. It has now grown to this year. The planting season will be just now, or just in October and November, 500 farmers. And this, as a little aside, is not a CFGB program. It was too small a program to get through the hoops at the Canadian Food Grains Bank, so we're not getting a government match. I think, didn't bring the notes with me, but I think in 2017, NCM sent about $14,000 to sponsor this program, $14,000. So, 500 farmers times maybe 25 bucks a piece. And the tremendous impact that this has on their ability to feed themselves for such a very small investment is extremely important. And one of the things that they asked for when we interviewed them is that they thought that people who have livestock are richer than they are. And there's very few of the people that we interviewed that could afford a cow or anything like that. They asked for goats. Well, actually, I was quite dubious of this at the beginning, but the goat really has a place. We interviewed these farmers, and in some of these villages there was very little green of anything growing, but somehow the goats were very healthy and fat, and I don't know how they did it. So a goat can provide milk and meat, but also can provide manure to grow the crop. And they don't have the money to, as we do, go up, phone up the farm supply store, and the truck comes with our fertilizer. They don't have that. They just have a very rudimentary framework. So the manure is a very important thing. I remember there were very large chicken farms in the area that are sponsored by offshore investments, and they wouldn't give the manure to these poor people. They would sell it, and they couldn't afford to buy it. So the goat is a really critical thing. So here are people receiving the goats that NCM sponsored. I really like that slide, the happiness that they had. I want to give you one farm story, I promise, only one. When I went to college, never mind how long ago it was, my best roommate was a Holstein farmer, and we had our dairy farm at Alberton St. Farm. We had jerseys, and the joke that they had on me, they would never let me leave this. They said that they were too poor to own it, that I was too poor to own a cow and too proud to own a goat. So these people, I can guarantee you, were proud to get their goats, and they would be important to their food supply. Okay, that's Cincy Fury, our main head guy in Malawi for the Nazarene Church. A brilliant young man with a smile and lots of energy, and he himself, I believe, is responsible for a lot of the good things that are happening in Malawi. Using the best seeds. This is a little rant. There's a lot of bad press about big ag these days. And, Bayer, the aspirin people just took over Monsanto. And so there's a few of these big mergers, and there's an awful lot of skepticism about what the big companies are doing in agriculture. And I just want to say that this is a lady getting seeds from a handout from, I don't know what the history of the DeKalb company is right there, but I just want to make the point that if they can use somehow, within the limits that they have, modern technology, it's a huge thing, just a huge thing. We need the input that big companies have in their research and development to help these people. When we started in 1993, the yield we got, even in a normal year, not the bad year of 1993, Miller Farms, who harvested their corn, their average yield was double what our yield was in 1993. So in 25 years, we've had a doubling of basically technology has given us a doubling of the food supply. That is huge. And there are a lot of people who are detractors from this because they think that technology will not help people overseas, and I want to debate that. So that's all I have to say there. Make your own mind up. The Sakuma School. I didn't get there with Dennis, but Dennis and Alan Kristalis, who went with Dennis in 2017, went to this school. The slide on the left, just bricks, and the slide on the right, they're building new schools at the Sakuma School. It's a sort of a central Nazarene school in northern Malawi. So there's other stuff going on other than just the food supply. Okay, Nepal. We have new programs in Nepal. Year 2, a new project targeting 1,000 lowest income families. NCM supplied 78,000, and the budget was 156,000. This is not one of those countries that gets the 4-to-1 match, so you'll see that it's not automatic. Global Affairs Canada has certain restrictions on who you can help and how much you can help them. A lot of it is related to the political climate in the country. It's not that simple. We don't automatically get $4 for every dollar we donate. In Nepal, NCM helped in installing 10 wells, 3 through the Canadian Food Grains Bank and 4 from the Bowden Institute, which is a minimum security institution in Alberta. And so those inmates helped to fund wells in Nepal. 3 funded by other Canadian Nazarene churches. Income generation in Nepal, 46 self-help groups, established and trained in group management and how to start small businesses. Training in several things. Okay, supporting programs of other CFGP members. We've talked about this a bit, and as it gets larger and more complex, this business of international aid, we more and more have to cooperate with other members of the Canadian Food Grains Bank. And the cooperation between different denominations is one of the really delightful things and one of the good spin-offs of all these programs. So I'll go quickly through a few of them. Pakistan and Afghanistan. Presbyterian World Service and Development was the lead member. We gave $40,000 equity and $200,000 matching funds. So I learned something making this presentation up. I thought we could just give our own Nazarene money to joint projects, but in fact, the global affairs equity that we're entitled to can be given away too to other projects. So we can do more. We can give away our equity. Supported an urgent food assistance project in 4 drought-prone areas. These are Elaine's slides. I apologize if I don't have the details, but I'm actually speaking her words here now, so it's my report from Elaine. Sierra Leone. You may remember that Sierra Leone was a part of an Ebola virus outbreak. The little 3 countries in the Horn of Africa, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia, were the site. I think Liberia was the hardest hit one. In 2013, 2016, had serious Ebola problems. Okay, food assistance and food security for 300 households. 4-year project run by Tier Fund Canada, formerly World Relief Canada. It's a challenge to keep up with the names now because non-government, our relief agencies are amalgamating now too. Elderly people and widows thriving with, many with HIV/AIDS. 50,000 equity from NCMC. Yemen, we talked about Yemen. In October 2 this year, I got a clip from the World Health Organization. Last night I was looking around. The cholera outbreak in Yemen was the worst in the world. And this fall, just this past fall, they were getting 10,000 new cases a week. And so what they do is that the Saudis are fighting with the Houthi rebels in that country, and the Saudis have been successful in bombing a lot of the sewers and this type of thing, so that the conditions for cholera are just rampant in that country. Okay, so the Adventist Development Relief Agency, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, is the only organization that's operating in this one area that we contributed to. And I can't read it, but there was a 2-year health program and also a nutrition program. NCM Daves, can you help me? 25,000. I will make larger print for the next presentation if you choose to have me back. You may not want it. But anyway, we are cooperating in Yemen with the Adventists and helping fund their programs. It's an extremely dangerous area. These NGOs are operating basically with the bullets flying around. And so it takes an enormous amount of Christian commitment and faith to do that kind of work. And so we have to support them in whatever way we can. So I'm at the end, and I do want to remind you that we have these little cards. If you think we need to do more,
for world relief, and if our federal government needs to be stepping up to the plate, we're way behind the commitments that we have actually bargained for. I would encourage you to fill out these little cards. As I said, doesn't take any postage. I don't know how soon they'll get there, but we'd like to fill their mail bags with this request. And I do appreciate your allowing me to speak today, and thank you very much.